Hi, I'm Katie Tovah, a fundamentalist escapee and YouTuber. In honor of Black History Month, I am re-releasing my KKK history series. In the current political climate, real American history matters more than ever before. Please share this video far and wide. Thank you.
Hi, shalom. This video contains mentions of racism, hate crimes, and KKK activity. Viewer discretion is advised. Also, any use of outdated language is for historical purposes only and in no way reflects my own views. Alright, so originally this series was only going to have 3 parts, but as I've mentioned a few times, this has so many twists and turns that I was not expecting. This gets so much weirder and so much worse than I ever could have thought. So realistically, this series is probably going to be at least 4 or 5 parts. So as you can see from the title, we will be discussing what happened in Portland, Oregon. Yes, you heard me right, Portland, the Pacific Northwest. You're probably wondering what on earth happened there. You're about to find out. Buckle up because this is one bumpy ride. Okay, so this story starts with a man named Peter Burnett who was born in 1807. He led the first wagon train to Oregon in 1843 and eventually became Oregon's first Supreme Court justice. If you're from my generation, you're probably thinking of playing Oregon Trail on the computer in school. Unfortunately, this story is much more sinister. The actual history of Oregon and Portland is not commonly known, which is what compelled me to research it and make a video about it. Burnett instituted the Burnett Lash Law, which is exactly what it sounds like. Black people were forced to leave Oregon upon penalty of flogging. They also tried to ban Chinese migration to Oregon. Prejudice against Chinese people is a whole other thing I need to cover. I'll get to that. The Lash Law was short-lived, and there is no evidence that it was actually used, but Oregon was still founded as a whites-only state. That's a little detail you won't find in the computer game. In the 1920s, Oregon had the largest KKK population in the entire country. Walter Pierce was elected governor in 1922, and he was endorsed by the KKK. In 1948, the state government passed legislation that banned Negroes and mulattoes from living in Oregon. FYI, mulatto is what people used to call people who were mixed race. Today, the term is mainly used for historical purposes, such as the way I just used the word. The state constitution officially signed this into law in 1857. Oregon officially became a state in 1859, and it was the only official whites-only state. Oregon originally ratified the 14th Amendment, but quickly rescinded it due to public outrage. This was one of countless cases where states did not want to enforce legislation that had been passed at the federal level. You're probably wondering, isn't that illegal? Yes, it is. That's why all the conflict ensued. Oregon was one of 6 states that refused to pass the 15th Amendment, which gave Black men the right to vote. The 15th Amendment was not ratified in Oregon until 1959. Yes, you heard me right. My parents were alive when Black people in Oregon got the right to vote. The 14th Amendment would not be ratified in Oregon until 1973. Again, you're not misunderstanding anything. I'm dead serious about all of this. So by the end of World War II, Black population in Oregon had increased by about 20,000 people. Like many other states, Oregon did a ton of redlining, and most of the Black people in Vanport lived in temporary housing. I'm going to talk more about redlining in other videos, but for those of you who don't know, Redlining was where there were literal red lines on a map of a town to create sections where Black people would not be allowed to rent or buy homes. So in other words, it was deliberate, systematic segregation of neighborhoods. On Memorial Day in 1948, there was a big storm that caused a ton of flooding. Residents received a letter from the HAP, Housing Authority of Portland. Quote, "Remember, dikes are safe at present. You will be warned if necessary. You will have time to leave. Don't get excited." Yeah, if I was a member of the race being systematically oppressed by the government and the government was telling me not to get excited, I would get pretty damn excited. Not surprisingly, there was quite the death toll from this flooding. Also, not surprisingly, there aren't any solid records of the number of Black casualties. The estimate is 400 to 600, but the key word is estimate. We don't know for sure. In 1956, voters approved construction of an arena that would destroy 476 homes, roughly half of which were owned by Black people. The city also bulldozed Black homes in order to build a hospital, which I'm assuming would have been a whites-only hospital. The aforementioned redlining really picked up steam in the 70s. And for the record, redlining is why many suburbs and small towns are predominantly white. Neo-Nazi activity really picked up in the 80s and 90s. Hate crimes against Black people escalated significantly during that time. One of the most prominent hate groups was the WAR, White Aryan Resistance. Obviously, white people today aren't responsible for the creation of decades-old systems like redlining, but we are responsible for understanding how we benefit from these oppressive systems and understanding how we can fight for racial justice and equality moving forward. In part 4, I'm going to dig into some of the KKK's surprising connections with well-known institutions, companies, and public figures.
If you enjoyed this video, please do me a huge favor and hit the thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. All right, thanks for watching and I'll be back soon. Like you Bye.